this video, we're going to take a look at the steps needed to use the Food Business Sales and PAR spreadsheet. The goal of this spreadsheet is to provide you with some accuracy around your production needs, also known as your PAR. The spreadsheet can be used by anyone, regardless of whether your products are perishable or not, and no matter which channels you sell your products through. Ultimately, this spreadsheet should help make sure that you have the inventory you need when you need it to make the sale and help you minimize how much you're throwing away at the end of every day. We're going to cover three main things in this video. First, a very quick overview of the thinking behind the spreadsheet so that you understand that. Secondly, we'll walk through the steps you'll need in order to get the spreadsheet working correctly for you. And last, we'll take a look at the Reports tab and talk about that in more detail. As a reminder though, no spreadsheet can look into the future with 100% accuracy. Well, this spreadsheet helps to take certain factors into account that may impact your sales and help you make decisions from there. Remember that there are a multitude of factors that come into play on any given day, so this is not a crystal ball, but it should be able to help you more accurately make production decisions. The thinking behind this spreadsheet is that using your historical sales, you should be able to predict what your sales in the future will be. Since sales may vary by product type and by day of the week, as well as be impacted by weather or other outside phenomena, all of that has been built into this spreadsheet. One major thing to note is that this spreadsheet becomes more accurate the more you use it. The first few weeks of using the spreadsheet, it only has a few data points to pull from. But once you get to your third month or beyond, the spreadsheet now has 12 weeks of historical data it's using to make your production predictions. And those multiple data points means that it's going to increase in accuracy. Another thing I want to mention is that the worksheets are protected, as you can see by the lock icon down below. This is because there are formula upon formula upon formula running in the background of the spreadsheet in order to make it work correctly. And if you accidentally change or erase one of those formula, it will have a cascading effect throughout the entire spreadsheet. However, the cells within each worksheet that you need to access are open for you to do so, which is a perfect segue to start talking about how you actually use the spreadsheet. In this spreadsheet, you have 52 weeks at your disposal. You can use all of those, or if you only operate for a portion of the year, you can use only those sheets that you need. Each sheet does have 4 weeks in it, and the reason that it's broken out by week and not by month is because different months have different number of weeks in them. For each week, you have up to 15 product spaces to use. Unfortunately, we can't add any more product spaces than that, and if you need more, you'll have to purchase a second copy of the spreadsheet. So let's dive into the details of how you get started. When you open up your spreadsheet, go to the weeks 1 through 4 tab. At the top, to get started and to help you keep your record straight, input the dates that these 4 weeks cover. In this case, we'll say April 1 through April 28. Next, you're going to want to input your product names. As you can see, any products that you type into here will automatically be carried out into future weeks. But don't worry about putting all of your products in there right now if you aren't using all of them this week. You can always add new products in future weeks by simply typing them in that week. In the weeks 1 through 4 tab, you're going to notice that the PAR is grayed out. And this is because the spreadsheet is unable to give you a prediction for your first week because it has no data to pull from. So that's why it's grayed out. But in future weeks, you're going to see the PAR number here. And we'll talk about that after we work through week 1. The other thing that you're going to notice for every day of the week is you have this open checkbox. And this is asking, are you open for business this day or not? And that's because the spreadsheet doesn't want to penalize you for no sales on a day that you might not be operating. So it may be a day that you're not at a farmer's market or that you don't have your storefront open. So you want to make sure for any given day that you are operating that this checkbox is checked. If, let's say, you weren't at a farmer's market on this Monday, you can simply uncheck that box, and then you don't have to input anything into these cells right here. And at the same token, the spreadsheet isn't going to penalize you for not having had sales on those days. But let's say that this Monday we are open. The next question that you need to ask yourself is, do we have bad weather today? Weather can have a very dramatic effect on food sales. This could be, again, if you're at a farmer's market, a bad, cold, rainy day is really going to cut down on your ice cream sales. By the same token, if you're a storefront, you might find that bad weather increases your store sales because it might drive people to your store. Don't worry if you don't know if bad weather impacts your sales positively or negatively. The spreadsheet's actually going to figure it out. It's going to calculate it to a very specific percentage point so that you'll have an idea that, oh, bad weather impacts my banana bread sales 18%. It impacts my barbecue sauce 32%. So it'll do all those calculations for you. Unfortunately, you can't say, well, it was kind of a bad weather day, but then it got a little bit better. This is sort of a 1 or 0 question, so you have to say, am I going to count this as a bad weather day, or am I going to count this as a good weather day? And if I'm going to count it as a bad weather day, I'm going to check the box here. Now, if you have found that weather doesn't impact your sales, or you don't believe that weather impacts your sales, you can actually use this box to mean anything you want. You could say, well, instead of bad weather, I'm going to say that this is a holiday. So whenever it's a holiday, I'm going to check the box. You can't change the font that's in here or the text that's in here, but just make a note for yourself that instead of bad weather, you're saying it's a holiday, and then you want to check the box whenever it's a holiday. So you can use this box to mean whatever you want. Just make sure that you stay consistent with your meaning. So on this Monday, we are open. The weather is going to be good. So now I'm going to type in, how many units do I have on hand? So what's my inventory? How much do I have ready to go? How much might I be bringing to the farmer's market or putting out on my store shelf or making available for online sales? We'll say I've got 20 slices of banana bread. In these cells, you can only put numbers. So you can't put, if you put in 20 slices, you're going to get this value error. So this can only be a number. Now, if you wanted, you could say banana bread slices so that you can consistently keep track of how you're selling it. Barbecue sauce, will say it's 8-ounce jars. Maybe I would have maybe I'll input another one here. Barbecue sauce, 12-ounce jars. So you can divide things up like that. So how many units do I have on hand? Input that information for every product that you have. Next, at the end of that day, how many products have you sold? It's easy to just type in based off of the records that you kept during the day. As you type in the units sold, you'll notice that this units remaining figure is changing. The units remaining is telling you how many units you still have in inventory to carry over to the next day or the next time that you're open and going to be selling those products. You also have a units sampled column here. So if you sample your products to customers, you often want to know how much you're sampling out to them because technically that is money that's going out the door. So in these cells, put out whether you have sampled product. I know sometimes it might be a little bit hard because you might have your slice of banana bread and cut it up into very small pieces, but ultimately you want to keep track of the units that you've sampled based off of the serving sizes that you're indicating. So we'll say that we sampled ultimately 2 slices of banana bread, we had 1 jar open, and so forth. You also have a column here for units wasted. So this is any products that you had to get rid of at the end of the day because they might have gone bad, they were past their due date, or let's say if the barbecue sauce, well, you couldn't close up the jar and reuse it the next time, for example. Ultimately, what you're left with is units remaining. So now you know how much do I actually still have in inventory that I could sell the next time I am going to be operating. You want to do this for every day of the week. Let's say for Tuesday, we're not open, but then on Wednesday, I'm going to say Wednesday was actually, it's going to be a bad weather day, unfortunately. The reason the units on hand cells are now blank, even though you know, wait, I have 6 units remaining, you might have been in the kitchen on Tuesday, and therefore you might actually have more units on hand now. You will notice as you pan over your product names, stay static. So it's always easy to see, okay, what am I talking about? Which products am I talking about? Go through the same exercise again at the end of the day. What are my units sold? What are my units sampled? What are my units wasted? After you've done that for the days that you're open that first week, you'll find a weekly summary of statistics. Now, I should mention that if you have already been tracking your historical sales, you can always input your average sales by day and by product into this first week so that you can see how those numbers summarize out, and then you start new in week 2. The weekly summary gives you your total unit sales for the week by product, as well as your average daily unit sales. Now, for those unit sales, we're only taking into account the days that you're actually open. So, once again, you're not going to be penalized if you've only been open for part of the week, as those days aren't calculated into our average daily sales. You'll also see, starting in week 2, how your weekly unit sales increased or decreased from prior weeks. This way, you can keep an eye on whether something is trending up or down and make adjustments as necessary. Later in this video, you'll see how this information is also captured in the graphic reports, which makes it very clear to see how your product sales are trending. There's also a column that calculates how much product you sampled or wasted, and then, again, whether that's an increase or decrease from the prior week. The reason this is important is because it can help you determine what's happening to a lot of your product if you're not seeing it equal out sales-wise. You may find that you're sampling out a lot of product and perhaps your sales are increasing as well. Or you may find that you end up wasting a lot of product at the end of the day or the end of the week, and thus need to recalculate how much of that product to make. Of course, the spreadsheet is going to help you do that as well, as you'll see in a minute. The last 2 columns tell you how much product inventory you have remaining at the end of the week, and then also how much bad weather, or if you've been using those check boxes to stand for something else, how much that phenomena impacts your sales by product type. So as you can see here, based on our example, we find that bad weather results in a decrease of banana bread sales by 53%, a decrease of barbecue sauce sales by 27%, etc. If bad weather or holidays or whatever you're using that checkbox for resulted in a positive increase in sales, then you'll see that percentage number be 100% or greater. So if you see a cell saying 125%, then it means that bad weather actually increases your sales of that product by 25%. Now you may find that there are times where you see these NA cells. You can see them as you look towards the future weeks, as well as you can see them here for product spaces that you're not using. However, what's going on with these 2 cells where we have product and we know that we had bad weather this week? In this case, you didn't sell any product on those bad weather days. And so the spreadsheet indicates NA, which is a note to you that you sold 0 products when the weather was bad. Now let's take a look at how all this data figures into week 2. Starting in week 2, we no longer have grayed out bars for the par column, but instead you're going to find numbers there. These numbers are based on how many products you sold the prior week, assuming you were open. If you weren't open, then the spreadsheet calculates your par based on up to 12 weeks of historical data, and then it also takes into account whether you're predicting a bad weather day or not for that sales day. So as you look towards your sales day on Monday, take a look at the weather and determine whether or not you think it's going to be a bad weather day, or whatever else you're using this cell to indicate. Checking this box is going to change your par either to the positive or to the negative based on your historical sales of that product when this checkbox has been checked. So as an example, when it's not checked, we have a par of 10 slices of banana bread, and when we do check this box, our par figure goes down significantly. These pars are only taking into account what is expected you'll sell of that product on that day and not what you might also sample. So if you notice that last week you sampled 2 slices of banana bread and you want to do the same thing this week, then you'll need to add that figure to your par. If you have the food product cost and pricing tool, you can always use this spreadsheet to help you determine how much of your ingredients you're going to need by changing the desired yield cell. So for example, pretending this is our banana bread recipe, if I know that I'm actually going to need 24 slices of banana bread, I just put that in there, and then I'm going to see my units required for desired yield number to change. From there, I can check my ingredient inventory and make sure that I have enough ingredients to make the quantity that I desire. You can also use your par figures and look ahead for a week and say, based on what I think will happen with the weather this week by checking the appropriate boxes on the appropriate days, how much par do I anticipate needing all week? So how many slices of banana bread do I expect that I would need all week? Then I put that total number into the desired yield box of your food cost spreadsheet so that you know the total amount of ingredients you'll need for the week. Hopefully, that will help save you from those last-minute store runs I know that we all end up doing from time to time. One important thing to note about the PAR calculation is that you only want to look at it in advance. Don't look at it after you've filled out your unit sales for that day. As you can see, as I add in my unit sales for this day, the PAR is going to change. That's because the PAR is tied to data that is being input into the cells both now and in the past. So only use the PAR as you're figuring out how much product to make for any given day or how much to bring to a market event or put out for sale. After that day is completed and you've input your sales data, the PAR is no longer relevant. The reason the PAR changes is because these calculations all feed into the bad weather formula and other formula going on behind the scenes to make this tool as accurate as possible. And I can't delineate out that I only want certain cells taken into consideration some of the time, but not all of the time. As I mentioned before, you can look out for a week ahead and determine, well, I would want Monday to be a bad weather day based off of forecast. And I think Wednesday might also be a bad weather day based on forecast. But you can always uncheck the box if you get to Wednesday, let's say, and it turns out to be a beautiful day. All you have to do is uncheck this box and then input the units that you had on hand and how much you actually sold that day. Unchecking the box when appropriate makes sure that the data you're inputting is being used correctly and not, for example, muddying the water when it comes to calculating how bad weather, holidays, or whatever you're using this box to mean really impacts your sales. So honestly, that's really all you have to do to get this spreadsheet to work for you. It's just a matter of recording how much you sell on any given day, as well as how much you sample out and/or waste. Keep an eye on making sure that you're using the checkboxes properly when needed, and the spreadsheet does all the rest, from telling you how much you can anticipate selling to also giving you weekly summaries. There's one other feature of this tool designed to help you clearly understand the data that's being reported in the spreadsheet, and that's via our Reports tab. So let's take a look at that now. The Reports tab is the first tab in your workbook. Now, when you first click on it, you're actually going to see empty graphs and charts. What you're seeing here is I've actually completed the first 4 weeks of data, just put in sample numbers so that we can see how it works. But initially, when you don't have any data in the spreadsheet, if you click on this tab, you're just going to see that you have empty reports. The first thing you have to do is come over to this side and fill out the data. So, step 1, go through and input your product names in the order that they appear in your spreadsheet. Again, you can always come back here later and add a new product if you've added a new product partway through your selling season. You also need to input the price that these products are sold for, and these are the prices, not the costs. Now, if you're selling wholesale and retail, you might want to have 2 separate lines, one that would, for example, say banana bread wholesale and have that price, and then one that says banana bread retail and have that price. So input your price points as well. After filling out the product names and the price points, the spreadsheets actually take care of the rest. So let's take a look at the charts. So the first chart that you're going to see is your weekly unit product sales chart. What this is doing is tracking how many units you're selling of your product. So how many slices of banana bread, how many jars of barbecue sauce. So it's going to track it for you so you can see, okay, are sales up, are sales down, how are they trending? The second chart that you're going to see is your total weekly product revenue sales. So this is different from your product unit sales because now we're taking a look at how much money are these different products actually bringing into you. This is important because you may have some products that actually don't sell a lot of units but have a higher price point and so are actually bringing in more money. So this enables you to track and see what's going on with your revenue on a product standpoint. the last two graphs are breaking this information down different ways. So in the first graph over here on the left, we're taking a look at how much each product is actually contributing to your overall sales. So which products are contributing the greatest portion of revenue to your sales to date? So for example, you can see here the spicy pepper jelly is actually accounting for 38% of your sales. Again, this is a really quick and easy way to see, okay, what products are really driving my sales. And then because you might want to be able to break it down and say, well, how much does that pepper jelly, how much has that actually brought me thus far year to date? This graph over here on the right is breaking down your total revenue to date based off of product. So again, you can see that your pepper jelly is has brought you about $1,300 in sales thus far. The barbecue sauce is about $970 so far. So again, the hope is with this graph, and with all of the graphs actually, that it's a way for you to be able to visualize what's going on with your product sales, what's going on with your unit sales, and help you make decisions from there. For more information about this workbook, the food costing workbook, or other tools available on the Small Food Business site, welcome you to come check us out at smallfoodbiz.com.